Tennessee Valley, welcome to another episode of Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. I'm your host this week, Bobby Futch. Tim McDermott's here alongside with me, and we're with Guardian Investment Advisors, serving the whole Tennessee Valley. Recently new office in Knoxville, Tennessee. Our great friend and advisor, Brogan Walters, is doing really well up there. Get all the way into North Georgia, Alabama, all across the Southeast. So if you hear anything here that you're want to talk about, give us a call.
Yeah.
We serve pretty much the whole country. We signed up a couple folks in California this year too, didn't we?
We did. We're going to throw out some quizzes today as well. So if you're looking to kind of understand your situation a little bit better at home, we've got a couple of easy quizzes you're going to be able to take throughout the radio show just to see where you're at tax-wise, retirement planning-wise as a whole, and maybe even some risk we're going to throw out there.
Yeah, so you may be hearing some bells in the background. It's getting to be about that time, but they may not necessarily be jingle bells. You know, maybe the tax man coming with his tax bag. So we're going to talk about some year-end planning, not just taxes, but investments, and all sorts of things that you should be thinking about here towards the end of 2025. Crazy to say. Tim, how have you been, man?
I'm happy. I can't complain. I've been doing a lot of cooking here recently, and I just made collard greens last night, which I never even thought to make until I was walking through the store one day, and I just saw collard greens in a bag, and I was like, hey, you know what? That would be good. I'm going to try that. Turned out decent, you know.
You put any meat in there with them? That's kind of the trick, right?
I did a little bacon, yeah. A little bacon. A little bacon in anything is just good, you know.
That's funny enough. We had big old giant BLT sandwiches last night.
Very nice.
Just like comfort food.
It is.
I was sitting there thinking yesterday, I hadn't had a BLT sandwich in forever.
Yeah, it's getting cool out. You know, a little soup recipes are coming out. Maybe a little tomato soup and grilled cheese.
So my daughter and wife weren't as excited about it as I was, but it turned out really well.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, let's get into this year-end financial planning, Tim. There's really a lot that goes on, in a financial planning firm, and you should be doing yourself towards the year-end. It's easy to get wrapped up in all the holidays and kind of overlook this. So right now, if you haven't started doing your year-end planning, you need to start.
Yeah, let's start with a quick hit items, just a couple things that I think ought to be reviewed towards the end of the year every year. I think now is a really good time if you haven't done this yet this year, and even if you have, it's a good time to sit back down and just review that spending that you've been doing throughout the year, especially as we're kind of getting into Christmas, present buying season. We want to set a budget for that. We don't want to necessarily just go, wild buying.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
Yeah, I promise you your grandkids have enough toys. Buy them a little something here or there. But
yeah, it's important to revisit that spending plan.
Yes.
And that's something really important we talk to people about. If you don't have a spending or a savings goal, and it's not necessarily a goal just to spend money.
Yep.
You should know where your money's coming in, and your savings should be a line item on that spending plan every year. So review it. Not only did I spend too much, which happens to the best of us, but did I hit my savings goals? That's all part of that.
Sure. My wife and I build out we have a spreadsheet. Imagine that.
Surprised.
And it shows us where what our income is, what our expenditures are throughout the year. And we go through that once or twice a year just to make sure that we update things and make sure that we're on the same page, understanding where our money's going to. Because you'll be surprised when you add it all up. It adds up very quickly.
That's right.
It's like going to Costco.
And everything's getting more expensive.
It is.
Revisiting your goals, right? Do you have financial goals? You should. You should sit down every year, every so often, and put some goals together. This year I want to put so much money in my retirement accounts or in my kids' 529 plans.
Yep.
If you're not, Tim.
A line item on our sheet is savings, whether that's personal savings or retirement savings. And we go back and look and say our accounts where we thought they would be by the end of the year.
And, we have some clients with some really fun ones. Like, I want to buy a boat or a second home or an RV, right? And you got to save for that down payment or that purchase.
Yep.
Those are all the goals you should look at. Very, very important to make sure you stay on track. Checking tax advantage contributions.
Yes. Great. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to pause and take a minute on this for a second. It, we're getting towards the end of the year. I would make sure that you're putting as much into these 401ks as you would like to right now. Make sure that you're maxing them out if you want to be maxing them out. The max out amount for this year right now for 401ks is $23,500. You can do an additional $7,500 in catch up, and that's for 2025. Now, we were nice enough to get our 2026 contribution limits. Let's talk about these real quick. Every year they change these contribution limits, and you're able to decide whether or not you want to put more into these programs or if you want to save elsewhere, right? If you're still working, you're still getting that match, maybe it's beneficial for you to max out that 401k. That 401k max out contribution right now is $24,500 for anyone under the age of 50. Yeah. If you are over the age of 50, you get an additional catch-up. That catch-up this year is an additional $8,000. I say this year.
Be curious. Yeah, these are the new numbers they just released for 2026.
That's correct.
And there's some big changes.
Yeah. So you'll be able to contribute an additional $8,000 to that $24,500 to your 401k. That is just your contribution limit. Your employers can be above and beyond that amount. So if you're looking to max out your 401ks, they're really ramping that up quite a bit this year. I'd say by $1,500 if you include the catch-up provision.
And that can be huge over time.
It is.
Don't forget, Tim, about what they're calling the super catch-up provision.
This was introduced last year?
Last year.
Yeah.
And so that comes up again. If you're between the ages of 60 and 63, the IRS has been nice enough to say, we'll let you put even more in your 401k. So you can put next year, 2026, $11,250.
That's the catch-up instead of the $8,000.
That's right. And so you add that to the 24.5. That's huge.
That's right.
Right? And not a lot of people know about that because it's fairly new in our tax code. So again, a catch-up if you're 50 plus.
Yep.
And then you get a super catch-up, I kind of like that word, between 60 and 63. The odd thing about it is when you turn 64, that goes away.
I know.
Right? And you just revert back
it
to the normal catch-up. But again, if you're in that window and you have the ability to add that money to your 401k, it's huge.
It's nice if you're looking to do that additional planning right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
IRAs and Roth IRAs. These are self-directed IRAs and Roth IRAs have a a contribution limit of $7,500 with a catch-up limit of $1,100, which is an odd number. We haven't seen that much before. And so that's a nice little bump. And then looking at SEP IRAs or defined contribution plans, a contribution limit of $72,000. Now, these are a little bit different.
Yeah, these are odd.
Yeah, they're SEP IRAs specifically are 25% of your AGI up to $72,000. So whichever is less, you can max out into those SEP IRAs.
Yeah, so I think the point in sharing these numbers before the end of the year is that go ahead and reach out to HR, right? Go ahead and change your withholdings.
That's right.
You know, if you want to take advantage of these increased limits, you can go ahead and do it now, and it's already ready to go come January 1st, right? Because after Christmas comes New Year's.
That's right.
You're going to push it off even further.
That's right.
Right, so make sure you get that done as soon as you can. And then I've had some wild markets here lately, Tim.
Yeah, it's a really good time to check what your allocations are and maybe make some adjustments if needed. We've had some market shifts here in the more recent weeks here. Now, we've had such a good run this year. I know we had a hiccup at the beginning of the year, but it's really torn and ran ever since. And so, it's not surprising to see a little bit of a drawback here in the last couple of weeks. It might make sense for us to look at making some adjustments to the allocation. I know a lot of people are hyped up about precious metals this year, and they've had a huge run. It's never a bad idea to take some profit off the table.
Yeah, and if it's something that you're looking to in 2026, 2027, maybe the year that you think you may want to retire, we've got a great tool. It's called GIAquiz.com. It's an absolute free website we put together to see where you're at in your retirement planning and your retirement journey. And it takes into account all of these things.
That's right.
Like taxes, retirement spending, investments. It's a pretty comprehensive quiz. Just got to figure out where you're at in that planning process. That's GIAquiz.com, and you'll get some results. It may take you 15, 20 minutes to do it. It's a pretty comprehensive quiz, but it really starts that conversation.
There's a couple of questions that we've heard more often than not here recently. And so I'm going to throw out just a few of them. And I think we ought to just kind of give a quick answer on these. I've heard a lot of, should I max out my 401k now? And I hate to say this, but that very much depends on your situation and what you're trying to accomplish. The nice thing about 401ks is there's no income limits to making contributions to those. You get the tax deduction if you go into traditional, or you can contribute to the Roth portion of those things no matter what your income is. And so it allows for some wide flexibility in your savings limits, especially if you're a high earner. If you're looking to save and get those deductions or those tax-free benefits later on down the road, yeah, absolutely. I would very much encourage you to do those.
Yeah, I've never heard a client say, "Tim, I think I've saved too much for retirement."
That's right.
that almost never happens. And so for most people, yeah, you should max out your 401k. Now, how you do it depends on kind of your tax situation and all that. So.
Bobby, what if you're behind for retirement? I feel like I've heard this 3 or 4 times this year. Folks come in, they say, "What if I'm behind?"
Well, you need to get started.
Yeah.
Right. Either get started if you haven't started saving for retirement, or if you felt like you haven't done enough. Those catch-up contribution limits that we talked about earlier in the segment are huge, right?
Yeah.
They're fairly new, so now's a better time to catch up.
And I'd say a lot of times people think they're behind, but they're actually ahead of the game, and they just don't know it because no one's ever mapped it out for them, right?
That's right.
So we've been able to do that a few times, which is a very rewarding conversation to have, and very awesome. What if markets drop again before the end of the year? Common question. We've seen some volatility. It's never going to go away. It'll always be there. But it's always a thought in the back of someone's head.
Yeah, and you got to make sure you're taking the appropriate amount of risk for where you're at in your retirement journey.
Yep.
Right. If you're younger, I'd say, listen, if it drops, it's kind of a bummer, but markets do that, and you want markets to do it. Great opportunity to add to.
Yes.
But as you get closer to retirement, it can affect you more and more for the long term. So
Much agreed.
Make sure that you're taking the appropriate amount of risk in your investments.
We're going to talk a little bit about the tax year-end tune-up when we come back in our next segment. We're going to talk a little bit about taxes, what we can be doing right now to plan for 2026, what we can be doing right now to take advantage of the rest of 2025, and really honing in on trying to put a little less of your pennies in Uncle Sam's pocket and keep them in your pocket, as pennies are now gone.
All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back on Plan Today, Own Tomorrow for the year-end tax tune-up.
Here's the truth. 70% of us will need some type of long-term care. Most people aren't prepared. And traditional long-term care insurance, it's expensive, and if you don't use it, you lose it. We have modern solutions, plans to protect your retirement, preserve your legacy, and give you flexibility. Text LTC to the number you see on your screen and get your guide today. Let's plan for tomorrow starting now.
Tennessee Valley, welcome back to Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. My name is Bobby Futch. I'm here with Guardian Investment Advisors Portfolio Manager Tim McDermott. We're doing a show this week about year-end tax planning, retirement planning, things you need to do to get ahead of for 2026. Again, don't wait too long. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Before you know it, 2026 is going to be here.
Yeah.
So in our first segment, we talked about just things you should be thinking about before you're in, kind of high-picture items, reviewing your spending, revisiting your financial goals, check those tax-advantaged contributions. Make sure you're at where you need to be for 2025, and go ahead and make the changes so you're right in line with 2026, and then evaluate your investment allocations. Really important as you get closer to retirement, make sure you're taking the appropriate amount of risk.
I'd throw one more thing out there, and I only throwing this out there because my wife and I did this last night.
Hey, collard greens?
That's right. No, we did go through our benefits packages through her work. And that's where we get our health insurance and things from. We did relook at that. We chose to step ourselves down to a lower premium health insurance plan because we really don't go to the doctors a whole lot, and the preventative care is all covered anyways. It saved us. We cut our health insurance bill by about 2/3.
Wow.
And it's going to allow us to contribute to that HSA plan.
I love it.
So it's a pretty awesome change for us. And then her plan also offers a flexible spend. I believe it's a dependent care plan. And so we have 2 kids in daycare, right? And so we contribute to this every year and then pay ourselves back at the end of the year, and it's all tax-free income.
Yeah, you got one of those dependent care FSAs,
Yeah.
which is really great. And the cool thing about that is you're paying daycare anyway. Right?
Exactly.
So
It's money that's going out one way or the other. We might as well get it tax-free, right?
yeah, but now you get to pay for daycare income tax free,
That's
which is awesome.
That's right.
That's a great benefit. If those are available to you, I'd love to have a conversation about it. I hadn't heard about a
Yeah.
dependent care FSA in a while.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
We did talk a little bit about what we can be doing right now to prep for things in the future. I love the name of our radio show. We're planning today so that we can own tomorrow, right? And so one of the ways you can do that is running out to see GIAquiz.com. It's a great tool. Take you about 7 minutes to put in the information, and then just kind of gives you some information on your retirement. Are you ready? What holes may you need to look into and plan for? It's a great way to get started on the retirement planning process. So take a few minutes, do that. If you're listening to us while you're driving, don't do it right now. Wait till you get to the office.
So there's a lot of conversations in year-end tax planning and a lot of gray area with a lot of folks, Tim, because we've got some tax planning deadlines that are the end of the year, December 31st.
That's right.
And then you have others that are pushed out until you file your income tax return.
That's right.
So that's either April 15th or later. So let's talk about some of those things. It's kind of a use it or lose it situation. Some of the things that you need to make sure you have done before the end of the year.
Okay, so a couple things that I would say you got to get done before December 31st. If you're wanting to max out and make additional 401k contributions, those have to be done by December 31st. Pretty much all of your other contributions, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, SEP IRAs, these can all be done before April 15th typically. But 401k contributions have to be done by December 31st.
I would say if your retirement plan is sponsored by your employer.
That's
right.
a great point, yes.
401ks, 403bs, all the fours.
That's right.
And all the letters.
TSPs.
You need to have that done before the end of the year.
That's right.
To your point, if you have a retirement account that you open individually, oftentimes there's a lot more flexibility with that. So
That's right.
make sure that happens. Tax loss harvesting.
Yep.
It's one we've had a lot of conversations about this year, partly because the market's just been on an absolute run.
Sure.
This doesn't apply to your tax deferred retirement accounts, but if you have taxable brokerage accounts, you have stock accounts that are there's no favorable tax treatment, you can actually go through, and the way this works is throughout the year, when you sell investments in those accounts, you've locked in those gains.
Sure.
And the lingo is you've turned unrealized gains into realized gains. And once they're realized, now you got to pay income taxes on that.
That's right.
But what we're talking about here with tax loss harvesting is if you happen to have some of those positions that are underwater for whatever reason, the recent market pullback maybe has brought some of those positions underwater. If you sell them at a loss, you can subtract that loss from the gains that you've already had this year.
That's right.
Right? It makes your capital gains tax bill a little less. You can take a small portion of that against ordinary income, but for most folks, it doesn't make a big dent. But if you happen to have some losers in your portfolio,
might be a good time to take advantage of it.
Go ahead and trim them, and maybe that can help you a little bit on your taxable gains. What about qualified charitable distributions, Tim?
Yeah, QCDs kind of brings me back to RMDs. RMDs are more of a have to than a get to kind of thing, right?
Right.
We're required to take a certain amount out of our IRAs at a certain point. And a lot of folks are using what's called a qualified charitable deduction to use that RMD and get a tax benefit for it at the end of the day.
Yeah, if you don't want your RMD or you don't need it to pay your bills, you can actually send that to your favorite charity, right?
Yep.
You can send it to your church.
Now, why would you do this in the form of a QCD versus just write a check and drop it in the box, right?
Great question. And there's generally more of a tax benefit from doing QCDs than there is your standard charitable deduction. And what that really means is these QCDs are what we call a top line deduction.
Sure.
If the income from your RMD, it basically just goes away, right? It goes away 100% when you send it directly to a charity, and so you don't have to pay income on that at all. So you don't have to worry about what the percentage of deductions is, what's the limit that I can deduct.
Doesn't matter.
It just comes right off the top, which is really cool.
Now, you do have to be the youthful age of 70 and a half to start doing those QCDs. But if you are there or you're taking your RMD and not needing it, this could be a great option and a way to save on taxes and not add to your taxes from the taxable income from the IRAs. Last one I'll throw out there is Roth conversions. A ton of planning around this year. trying to take advantage of lower tax brackets and put ourselves in tax-free position for the future. This, if you're going to do a Roth conversion, it has to be done by December 31st in the year in which you want that conversion to be done. And so this is something that if you haven't had that conversation right now, and I mean right now is the best time to have that conversation.
Right.
Don't wait any longer. There's some planning and process that goes behind this. It takes a little bit of time. If you call your advisor and want it done on December 30th, chances are it probably won't get done by the next day.
Yeah, you can't make the transfers work that
That's
quickly. You know, if you've listened to us any amount of time now, you've heard us talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It passed this year on July 4th. And so that takes that window for Roth conversions and, in my opinion, makes it even more attractive.
That's right.
If you want to have a conversation about that, you know, give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about that. We talk about Roth conversions all the time. A big misunderstanding with Roth conversions and really the tax brackets in general, Tim, is that once you cross into a certain tax bracket,
Everything's
that's
taxed
your
at that
tax
amount.
bracket,
Yeah.
right? And so people are really hesitant to do Roth conversions because
Sure.
they say, you know, if I go up into the 22% bracket, I'm going to pay so much more in income tax. Maybe, probably not. And so if that's your hesitation, let's have a conversation because we have what's called a tiered income tax system in the United States. All the money that's in the 10% bracket, all the money that's in the 12% bracket, all stays there.
Yeah.
Right. And only the amount of income you have that crosses you into that next threshold is going to be taxed at that rate. And so that's fairly misunderstood. We get that question every so often. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then review withholdings.
Yes.
This is important really for everyone, but especially if you're self-employed. You don't want to be surprised come April 15th when you file your income taxes because you didn't keep enough out of your checks.
Sure.
And again, W-2 employees, that's generally a specific formula that really is pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? But if you have some things that are a little different about your situation, you know, high medical expenses is one we see a lot. Maybe you don't need to withhold as much. Maybe you have some outside income from a second job or something like that can really leave you, you know, holding the bag come April 15th. So just review your withholdings. You know, you can look at your W-2, see how much you've sent to Uncle Sam. If you're one of our friends in Georgia, it'll show you how much you've sent to, I don't know what we call him, Uncle Peanut or Uncle Peach, the state of Georgia, right? So just make sure you're not going to have any surprises come tax time because there's still some time to adjust those withholdings and you can have a little more taken out.
Shocker, but I keep a rolling spreadsheet throughout the year. It's just a nice way for me to list out what my deductions are and my expenses are throughout the year. And it makes tax time really easy for me because I just pull up this spreadsheet and fill out my questionnaire before I get my taxes done each year. Allows me to stay organized and pretty on top of what's going on. And of course, making those quarterly payments as most people do in that situation.
Yeah, if you're self-employed, right?
Yeah, you want to stay on top
You get
of
the
that.
opportunity to pay your taxes 5 times a year instead of just one.
That's right.
But again, there's penalties there if you don't do that right.
Yep.
So just make sure you stay on top of that. I like these little quick questions. Bust myths, like I've already talked about this one. Tax brackets stack.
Yep.
Right? Do they stack? They don't. Right. So
Yep.
don't be afraid to pay a little more or get a little more in income for a Roth conversion strategy or something like that. Because
Yeah, to Bobby's point, if you cross over into that 22% threshold, not everything that you earn then is taxed at 22%. Just the amount above and beyond that is done that way. That's what the tiered tax schedule means. And to that point, I'll say this real quick. One tax can always beget another tax. And so you want to be careful. You do want to be careful about crossing over some thresholds, especially IRMA bracket if you're on Medicare, right? It may cause your IRMA premiums, your Part B premiums to go up. And at the end of the day, that's really just a tax that you have to pay. And so we do want to be cautious and careful of those. We run some pretty specific planning tools to make sure we stay within those limits.
yeah, we should have mentioned earlier, these questions have come from our website. Right, GIAPlantoday.com, GIAPlantoday.com. You scroll down there, there's a little box there.
Yep.
Just type in your question, we'll get it, and we can answer it for you. If not on the radio, we'll get you an answer in person.
That's right.
Roth conversions must be huge to matter is one we get a lot.
Not necessarily. A lot of times we're doing very little Roth conversions over a long period to make sure that they're done on time, especially if you're making those contributions and doing it at the same time. It can be a big difference for you. I would say if you're looking to understand what that tax bill is, how it's going to affect you, what the Roth conversions may look like, and how we can save taxes in the future, plantodaytaxbill.com. It's a great tool. Go in there, couple minutes, input your information. It will show you what your tax liability could be throughout retirement and how much you may end up paying to Uncle Sam. Plantodaytaxbill.com. Run out there, take it. We'll be right back for segment 3. We're going to talk a little bit about the market, some risk that's out there, and how we can take advantage of it. The scariest 4 words in retirement: out of money forever.
That's the number one fear we hear, running out of money before running out of life. You've worked decades to build savings, but without a plan, that nest egg could dry up faster than you think.
And let's be honest, the market alone won't guarantee your income.
Exactly. That's why we create income streams that last as long as you do. It's about turning savings into a paycheck for life.
To get your income planning guide, text the word income to 877-706-7526.
Welcome back to Plan Today, Own Tomorrow with Guardian Investment Advisors. Tim Thurman, my buddy's here with me, Bobby Futch. We're advisors here at Guardian Investment Advisors. We're talking about year-end tax planning.
I think you missed Gary. You just called me Tim Thurman.
Tim Thurman.
I mean, I appreciate it. It's a compliment, but
I do miss Gary. Tim McDermott is here. Our boss, Gary Thurman, is not in the office this morning. Last segment, we talked about a little bit about taxes. You know, what can you do towards the end of the year to kind of make sure your taxes are in line? You don't have any surprises come April 15th. And now we're going to talk about something people find a little more exciting most of the time is investing.
Yeah.
Make sure that whatever you're doing, your investment plan is in line. We talked a little bit about what you can do before the end of the year, but Tim, let's look forward to 2026. And what should investors be looking to do in 2026?
It's been an interesting year in the market. Gold has gone crazy. It's had massive gains this year. Silver and precious metals right there with it, right? I think that's due to a few different reasons. I'll save that long story before I dive in too deep. But that's been an interesting thing. It's kind of lingered on this whole year and just kept running. We'll be watching that pretty closely as we move into next year. I think people are looking for some safety. And I think you're seeing a lot of folks understand the result of bonds. We saw proof of the pudding back in 2022, and they're looking for a place to get into some safe investments that's not bond related right now, and that may be why we're seeing that. As we're looking at resetting your portfolio, that's where this rebalancing conversation comes into play, right? We've talked to a ton of folks this year, and the census and the investments conversation comes back to, do we want to talk about, where does our safe part of our portfolio go? And so we've had a lot of conversations about gold. We've had more conversations about kind of staying away from bonds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the primer on bonds is that the price of a bond is inverse to the interest rate. And we've seen interest rate 3 cuts this year, maybe 1 more before the end of the year. So that's kind of helped buoy them a little bit. But you got to remember, from like the 1980s down to the early 2000s, interest rates just felt like a rock.
Yeah.
And we essentially hit 0, which means as interest rates go up, those bonds are going to lose value. And we've seen that in a real meaningful way. Again, we had a couple of rate decreases this year, but I think long term they're going to normalize, and they're going to go back up from where they are now. Whether that's 2026, 2027, I don't know.
It could be further down the road than that, but even still, with them being at the low rates that they are right now, your yield is just painfully low, right?
Right. Yeah. For most part of the year, you could go to the bank and get a CD that would be paying more than most treasuries would.
That's right.
And so we're really working with a lot of alternatives to this. Fixed indexed annuities are a big one. It provides a roll up, or I guess you can call it a yield, a payout percentage that bonds can't even get close.
That's right.
Unless you get into like super junk status with bonds, and the likelihood there of a default is so high that it's really not worth the juice is not worth the squeeze, as they say.
If you're looking to rebalance your portfolio, if you're listening to this and thinking, we we really haven't had that conversation, or I'm not sure what to rebalance into, that's a great conversation for us to have. We'll talk about that. We'll actually run a full report on your setup just to show you how you're diversified as we sit today and what it may look like as we move into, I guess, the next couple of years and how things have changed economically.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on a couple things for 2026, right? We've seen a big pullback in the tech stocks. Not surprising, their run was really historical. Whether or not the market is going to, the economics is going to catch up with some of those valuations is yet to be seen. I don't think the volatility we've seen is anything that we didn't expect was a possibility. But I think more going into 2026 is, our legislative and our government outlook and what happens. You remember back in April we had the sweeping tariffs that were announced.
Yep.
We're still waiting on how that's actually going to play
Sure.
out. So that could have a meaningful part in the economy. But for the most part, the economic numbers are good, Tim. Right. So as long as you're not, heavily weighted in those, Mag 7, like we like to say, I don't see any particular reason to be outwardly concerned right now.
I think I'd agree with that, but it would bring me into the next point of reviewing your risk tolerance,
Yes.
right? Just because things aren't going haywire with the economy right now or the market necessarily doesn't mean that your things in your life haven't changed, right? And so I would encourage you to probably recheck that risk tolerance, make sure you're happy with where things are. It's very easy for us to forget and be really aggressive in a market that is really aggressive, right?
Right.
And then we get hit with a pullback or a recession, and it's a very quick and hefty reminder that you may not have wanted to be in such a aggressive position.
Yeah, and that allocation or your risk tolerance is different for everybody.
Agreed.
And so you need to make sure that you're where you need to be for your plan. So what are smart investors doing before the end of the year, Tim?
We talk about all this stuff all the time. We talk about what's going on, how things change legislatively, economically. Our smart investors are staying consistent.
Yep.
There's no reason to go out there and just say, okay, well, I'm going to stop putting money into my 401k, or I'm going to all of a sudden ramp it all the way up and get super aggressive just because I feel like I'm missing out on what's going on. Stay true to that risk tolerance that you set. Stay true to the plan that you've set. And if you're consistent in what you're trying to do, it'll help you take the emotions out of what you're trying to do and make it a math problem, not an emotional problem. Right?
Yeah, if you've put a full retirement roadmap or a retirement plan together, it's really easy to look at it and say, am I where I'm supposed to be?
That's right.
Right, and once that plan works out, then you can get kind of back into that. Do I need to take the risk? Am I okay taking a little bit of extra risk? And what that does, to your point, is it allows you not to second guess yourself all the time.
That's right.
Because again, your retirement at that point is a math problem. I need to have X amount of dollars saved. Okay, how do you get there? You put an X amount in, and you're getting it at a certain rate of return over time. You're not forced to chase a higher return when you think the markets are good, and then you don't feel like you need to get out when markets are choppy because you've got that roadmap in place.
To that point, our smart investors are looking at what they're putting into their plans, and they're making adjustments to those contributions, not necessarily saying, okay, let's just double our contribution all at once, but they are making sure that they're adjusting with the new contribution limits that are available to us. And so maybe they're upping that maximum to meet the maximum next year, taking advantage of the catch-up provisions, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, and you need to review your long-term goals. Have your retirement goals changed? Do you want to retire earlier for a certain reason? You want to do it a little later for a certain reason? It's something you really need to look at all the time, and those can change.
Yeah.
Again, maybe you want to buy that boat or that Corvette this year. Okay, let's make a change in the plan and make it happen.
That's right. Yeah, we've seen a lot of, I guess, the long-term success actually work out when we're consistent, we're not being super emotional, and we're making those adjustments as needed. Those adjustments are not necessarily huge adjustments usually, unless something massive happened in your life, but small tweaks to take advantage of what's going on legislatively and taking advantage of whatever new tax laws out there.
I always like to think of retirement planning as your favorite, GPS app on your phone.
Sure.
Right. I think everyone uses one nowadays. I've got my favorite. And so for example, my family lives in Florida. I didn't done that drive, hundreds of times at this point, right?
You don't need the GPS to get there,
But
but
I still put it in. I don't know why I do it, but it works because
what helps
if-
with traffic?
if there's a traffic jam, if there are police up there, not that I speed, it kind of
He
tells
drives
me.
like an old man. Don't worry.
But it helps me adjust my route. Right?
That's
I'm going to get there more efficiently,
That's right.
and that's what a good retirement plan is all about. And being able to sleep better at night is something that's one of my favorite parts of my job. And so, meeting with folks, 2, 3, maybe 5 years out of retirement, being able to show them exactly what that risk profile looks like, and helping them optimize that for them. More often than not, I would say we say, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, you've done really well. You are still in accumulation phase.
That's right.
You are just cruising. It's done really well for you. But let's give you a little more peace of mind. Let's dial it back. Let me show you that even though you can reduce your risk in your retirement plan, you're still going to get there, and you're probably going to get there more consistently over time. You're not worried about a market recession at the end of 2025 or 2028 or whatever it's going to come, because we
That's
know
right.
it's going to come. So that's really an important thing to do, and stuff that can help there towards the end of the year.
So, what's a couple simple steps that our listeners can take right now, just to maybe make things simpler as we move into the end of 2025 and towards 2026?
Yeah, just sit down and review your position.
Okay.
Right. Make sure that you know what's going on.
That's
Don't fly into 2026 blind.
Sure.
And that means rely on us to do that. We do this all the time. We can review your investment holdings. We can review generally your tax standpoint. Make sure there was nothing that speaks out to us that says, I think you've changed a little bit this year. You need to go talk to a tax professional, and really let's just sit down and have a conversation and see what's changed from 2024 to 2025, and what could we adjust, or what do you want to adjust going into 2026.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. I like the idea of taking this time of the year, maybe making an appointment with your financial advisor, having a conversation about what can I do right now to take advantage of things in my scenario, in my specific circumstances. Here's what we've done. Here's what we've taken advantage of already. Here's what we could do. And I think now is really a great time to do a lot of that planning.
Yeah, and if you're already a client of Guardian Investment Advisors, it's easy. Just come in. We'll pull the plan off the shelf and say, hey, this is what we've said was going to happen this year. Did it happen? Did we exceed? Do we need to make some tweaks? It's a great conversation to have because it gives you that confidence moving into next year.
If you haven't heard from your advisor all year, maybe now's a good time to come talk with us. We'll talk about those options for you.
I like it, Tim. Great segment. We're going to be back for one more segment on this morning's show, but I want to invite everybody to go to giaquiz.com. It's a tool that we've put out there, giaquiz.com. It touches on almost all these things we talked about in today's show. Kind of tells you where you're at in your retirement journey, what you've done well, what maybe you need to focus a little bit more on, and then kind of have a conversation with us. We can get you there so you can retire with confidence.
Take you 7 minutes. Go do it.
I appreciate it. We're going to be right back for the fourth segment here on Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. Stay with us.
Do you want to leave memories or a mess?
So many families are left with confusion, taxes, and even court battles because there was no estate plan.
And it's not just for the wealthy. Estate planning is for everyone.
It protects your family, passes on your values, and ensures your wishes are carried out.
That's a real legacy, more than just money.
It's peace of mind for the people you love.
To get your estate planning guide, text the words Estate Planning Guide to 877-706-7526. Happy New Year. Oh, wait, too soon?
A little bit too soon, I
soon.
think.
We're going to talk about what happens in 2026 as January rolls around the corner. We're on Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. I'm here with Bobby Futch. My name's Tim McDermott. We're talking a lot about what's happening towards the year end and what we're doing moving into 2026, how to take advantage of some tax opportunities, some contribution limits, some quizzes out there that'll help you take advantage of understanding your situation and giving you some numbers to that goal that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, let's say you're new to the retirement planning game, Tim, right? And you're saying, now's the time to get started. Into 2025, 2026 is going to be my year where I get my plan in place and start making meaningful steps towards retirement. What are some of the pillars that if folks are just getting started, or maybe you just need a refresher? You've
Sure.
been doing it for a while, you're getting close to retirement. You want to make sure your retirement house is built on a solid foundation. What are some of those things that people should be looking at?
Well, it's really hard to save if you don't understand what your cash flow looks like.
Absolutely.
That's understanding what's coming in and what's going out. And the first thing you ought to do is build yourself an emergency fund. This is a great way to combat those small things that happen. And when I say small, it's not detrimental to life, but they could be very expensive, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about the AC or the heat going out. We're in wintertime right now. Usually around springtime is when people start kicking their AC back on, and
Sometimes it doesn't come back on.
Noticing there's a lot of issues and there's a hot day, right?
Uh-huh.
And those repairs and replacements can be very expensive. The car goes out, we need new tires. Any number of vet emergencies or whatever the case may happen. There is a crazy statistic out there about the number of people who can't afford a $500 emergency right now.
And what you don't want to do is when those happen, because they will, right? Life happens. You don't want to have to go in your retirement accounts, or you certainly don't want to have to put it on a credit card to make sure you can pay for those things.
That's right.
So to your point, it's not exciting, and it's not high-end financial planning, but you really need to have an emergency fund in place. And how much that is, it really just depends on your cash flow.
The rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of expenses in your household. That helps you take care of a lot of those issues as they come along. It's not a perfect number, but it's a nice rule of thumb to start by.
Yeah, make sure you have an emergency fund, and I'd say in order to get that emergency fund, you need to have a spending plan. And that is not a fun thing to do, but once you do it, right, you don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
It just adjusts as you go through your financial journey, and you'll know exactly where your money's going, including that emergency fund. Retirement readiness. This is kind of a big one, right? And so we always tell people when they're first getting started, save something, right? Save something and save it in whatever vehicle you have available to you. If your employer doesn't offer a 401k, you should probably ask them about that. But then, okay, fine, go open your own IRA,
Sure.
Your own Roth IRA. You don't have to wait on your employer to offer those benefits to get started. And depending on your tax situation, which one is probably better for you. But I'd say if you're young and your taxes are fairly low, man, a Roth IRA is just absolutely awesome. And the earlier you start that, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, at the very least, go get the match from your 401k plan. And a lot of folks that we talk with have been doing this for a long time, right? They've built up that 401k, and a lot of times folks don't know that you can actually do what's called an in-service rollover on that 401k. When you reach age 59 and a half, most 401k plans allow you to roll that 401k asset out into a self-directed IRA.
Why would I do that, Tim?
Yeah, it's a great question. Why would you do that? You've probably looked at your 401k recently and noticed you have about 24 mutual fund options inside there to pick from. And none of them are a great safe option. You probably have a bond fund in there, maybe even a cash option, but neither one of those are giving you much of a return. Yeah. And so they're smart enough to realize that there's a lot more investment options, and you may not want to be very aggressive after you're reaching age 60 plus, looking at retirement right around the corner. And so it allows you the opportunity to get outside of that investment opportunity and go look for something that more benefits your specific strategy. We do this a lot for folks, but I can say pretty confidently, a lot of folks that come in here and we suggest this to say, I didn't know I could do that. Yeah. I wish I knew that earlier.
Or I'm going to continue to work. I don't want to shut my 401k down. Well, that's not what we're talking about. The 401k stays open.
That's right.
You still get that match. You still have the deferral coming right out of your paycheck. You just get to take the vast majority of that asset that you've managed to save in your 401k and take control over it.
Yes.
And that can look 1,000 different ways. To your point, those 401ks are designed so people don't make mistakes in them and get too risky.
That's right.
So that's why they're designed with only those certain amount of fund options in them. Generally pretty good for accumulators, but as you're getting to the point where you need to make sure that money's safe, or even in the distribution phase, you can do a lot better for yourself. That's a great point.
Our third pillar being tax strategy, and this plays in very well with that 59.5-year rule. Some 401ks allow for Roth contributions or Roth conversions, but a lot of them don't. And so moving that out into a self-directed IRA will then allow you the flexibility to start doing some tax planning and strategizing for taxes in the future. it opens up the tax strategy and investment world for you, and so it's something that should be strongly considered.
401ks are getting a little better with Roth options.
A little bit.
So, maybe yours might offer a Roth option, but even if they offer the Roth option, they might not offer a Roth match.
That's right.
So you need to be really careful if you try to dip your toe in the tax planning water in any of these employer-sponsored plans. But to your point, Tim, if you roll it over to an IRA, you can do and take advantage of all of these things.
We just had a lady call in last week, and she says she's never used an advisor before, but she's heard us a couple times on, I think she watched our TV show. And I brought up this 59.5-year rule, and she said, I can't believe I didn't know that existed. I believe she was 63, so she was like, I wish I did this several years ago, but I'd like to get started with it now. I am surprised at how many people don't know this rule. I feel like it should be more common knowledge, so I'm going to throw it out there more often, make sure people understand it and hear about it.
And the great thing about that is RMD age now is currently 73. By 2030, it'll go up to 75. So you have this huge window between 59 and a half when you can start doing Roth conversions in an IRA, and 73, 74, 75 when Uncle Sam starts to come knocking for his RMDs.
That's right.
That's more than enough time to make sure that you get a bulk or all of that tax deferred money out. And maybe by the time RMD age starts for you, you don't have an RMD because you've managed to convert all of that, and you can control your income in retirement, and you can control your taxes
It's a pretty
in
nice
retirement.
place to be, right?
It's great. What if we do some protection planning, Tim?
Yeah,
This is something
this is
not
the
necessarily
fourth-
fun to look at, but something everybody needs to take into
Our fourth
consideration.
pillar, last, certainly not least, I do feel like it ends up being the last part of a lot of folks' planning, but I would encourage it to be moved up and be more of a priority. And I say that because of this, right? Protection planning could mean insurances, whether that's life insurance or long-term care insurance, even doing things like estate planning, right?
Or disability insurance.
That's right.
A lot of people don't think about disability insurance.
But this is one of those things that I've seen more times than not, right? We'll see someone coming in, they have an income plan, they've got this thing built out, but they don't have any long-term care insurance. And they end up going into a nursing home, and it totally wrecks their income plan, not necessarily for the person that goes into the home, but for their spouse that they're leaving behind. And that can be detrimental. Life insurance being another big one. We still have quite a few folks. I know pension plans aren't very popular anymore, but we do have quite a few of our clients who have pension plans. And a lot of times those pensions are not 100% survivor benefit, meaning that if that person passes with a pension, their spouse may only receive half or none of it. And so you have to have a plan for that income when you pass away and that pension goes away.
Yeah, especially if you're younger. We have a lot of younger clients. If you've got dependents, people that are reliant on your income, kids, a spouse that maybe doesn't work or doesn't earn as much, you need to make sure that's taken care of.
That's right.
Through life insurance or through disability insurance. If you can't work or you can't work to the level that you currently are now and you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, that could blow up a plan entirely.
Yeah, we're working on a disability plan right now, I think, for
We are?
a new client. He's a younger guy, but makes good money. And if he were to become disabled, it would hurt their household quite a bit.
But let's talk about long-term care real quick here. Everybody knows about traditional long-term care insurance, right? You pay those premiums for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Right now, you're probably getting notices in the mail all the time about, hey, thank you for paying all those premiums, but you got to pay us more in order to get this coverage that we agreed on. And so I can't tell you the last time we suggested or we wrote a traditional long-term care policy. And so there are better ways nowadays to get that long-term care coverage, Tim. Can you mention one or two of those real quick?
Yeah, on a really quick note, asset-based long-term care is what we call it. It's using that asset and leveraging that asset to help take care of those long-term care needs so that you haven't paid into a policy for 20, 30, 40 years, and when you pass away, no one gets that money. In the asset-based plan, that asset goes back down to your beneficiary and helps your beneficiary understand that. I know we've talked about the 4 pillars. I know we talked about some tax stuff. We've talked about the new contribution limits. If you're concerned about what's going on out here, if you're not sure if you're ready for retirement, we have a retirement readiness quiz. It's called GIAquiz.com. You can jump online, fill this thing out, take 7, 8 minutes, understand your situation, understand if there's holes that need to be filled and taken care of before you run into retirement and it's a little too late.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a big one. We talked a lot about taxes too, so I'm going to throw out one more. PlanTodayTaxBill.com. PlanTodayTaxBill.com. This is probably the biggest conversation we're having with prospects and clients now is when I get ready to retire, how much am I going to owe Uncle Sam? There are things you can do now to take advantage of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, to take care of our current third lowest tax brackets in history, to make sure you can have more control in retirement. Tim, great show. I enjoyed it.
I did too. Great moving into the 2026 year and all the new changes that are coming along the line, if you will. And if you want to keep up to date with what else is going to be new, tune in next week. We'll talk a little bit more.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. This has been Plan Today, Own Tomorrow, Guardian Investment Advisors. We'll be with you next week.